math, numbers,
sine wave,
coordinates.
radius,
Let's factor. Let's factor more.
polynomials,
Numerator.
equations.
Hi mathematicians, welcome to Miss V's math class. Today I'm going to go through a few practice problems with you on how to convert different forms of lines into other forms of lines. Something that's very important to know how to do. This worksheet is an example of problems where we need to put lines of one form into slope-intercept form. And the reason we would want to be able to do that is to identify the slope and the y-intercept. So of course, mx plus b is the slope-intercept form, m being the slope, b being the y-intercept. So our goal is, as we can tell from this form, we want y by itself. And then we don't want any parentheses over here. We only want two terms, one with an x and then one constant. So I notice a couple things. First of all, y is not currently by itself. I need to get rid of that minus 3. And then there's some parentheses over here that I'm going to need to get rid of. So I'm going to start by simplifying the left side. I'm going to use distributive property to multiply this out. 2 times x is 2x. 2 times negative 8, negative 16. Okay, and I'm just rewriting the right side. Now I'm going to go ahead and get rid of that negative 3 using the additive inverse. And the 3 positives cancel 3 of your negatives, leaving you with negative 13. Now, even though y is on the right instead of the left, this is still mx plus b. Your slope would be 2. Your y-intercept, don't forget that the minus here means that your y-intercept is going to be negative 13. Alright, let's try one over here. This is in standard form. So this one came from point slope form into slope-intercept form. Let's try a standard form. So again, my goal is to get y by itself. Okay, so the goal at the end, I'm going to have y equals and then something over here. So, additive inverse first. Let's cancel out this entire x term. So if I add 4x, that creates a 0 pair. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing over here on the right. So imagine this part just isn't even here anymore. We have a new equation, 2y equals 18 plus 4x. Alright, my last step to get y by itself is going to be to divide both sides by 2. Make sure you divide the entire right side by 2, not just the first term, but both terms. Okay, those 2's cancel, leaves you with y equals, each of these is going to be divided by 2. 18 is divided by 2, leaving me with 9, plus 4x divided by 2 is 2x. Alright, and then of course this is switched around, but it's the same thing as 2x plus 9. So I can tell that my m is going to be the number in front of the x, the coefficient, 2, and my y-intercept would be 9.
Like to color? Check out my slope coloring sheet and more fun activities on my Teachers Pay Teachers account at teacherspayteachers.com/store/miss-vs-math-class. Find the link in the video description.
Perfect. Let's go on to a harder one. Looking at number 6 on this worksheet, I have some fractions to get rid of this time. So this one's going to work out a little bit differently, but same steps. I first want to start by getting rid of my x term. So I'm going to subtract 1/2 x from both sides. Okay, and that makes a 0 pair over here. Now to do a multiplicative inverse on a fraction, I'm going to multiply by the reciprocal, which would be 3 over 1. Remember that 1/3 times y is the same as y divided by 3. So if I multiply both sides by 3, then these 3's cancel and I'm left with just y. So make sure that you're carefully looking at what I've done here. I'm not just multiplying one of these terms on the right side, I'm multiplying both of them. So this is going to be a distributive property, okay? This leaves me with y equals 6 times 3 is 18 minus 3 times 1/2 would just be 3/2 x. Okay, and then I can switch that around if I want to reorder it. This is -3/2. I'm going to make sure that my sign stays with each of the terms. This is a +18. So my slope would be -3/2, and my y-intercept would be 18. Let's go ahead and try number 7 together. Okay, this is going to be another distributive property problem. So I'm going to go ahead and multiply out. That gives me -1/2 x, and then it's a negative and a positive, so it's going to result in a negative. Half of 6 is 3, so I'm going to change that to 3. Okay, equals 2y. And then I'm not done. I still have to divide both sides by 2. The entire side, half of half is -1/4 x minus 3/2 equals y. And so my slope here would be -1/4, and my y-intercept would be -3/2. Another benefit to converting functions into mx+b form is that we can more easily graph it by hand. So let's take this one for example. If I wanted to rewrite this, I'm going to try and get y by itself. So I want to get rid of that 1. That leaves me with 5y equals, those are gone now, x, and then -9 and -1 makes -10. Then I can divide both sides by 5. That leaves me with y equals 1/5 x minus 10 divided by 5 is 2. Okay, so my y-intercept, again, is a -2. My slope is 1/5. Okay, so if I want to graph this by hand, I'm going to start at that y-intercept. Here's the y-axis. Here's -2, so I know that's where it's going to cross the y-axis. My slope, remember slope is rise over run, and it can be between any points. So from the point that I already know, I'm going to rise 1 and run 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And that'll be the site of my next point. And then I could connect those. If I had a ruler, I could do it a little bit better, but your line essentially looks like this. Thanks for joining me today. I hope you learned something, and please make sure to check out my Teachers Pay Teachers account as well as my account on Instagram. Get out there and get practicing, and I will see you next time.